Um, Hello, everyone. My name is María Ceballos, and I am going to talk to you today about writing multilingual artist books, which is something I do in my own practice. And so I just want to show you some of my research, but also some of my work, which of course has everything to do with typography and book design. I am a visual artist from Colombia, and I did my MFA. I just finished my MFA in book arts at the University of Iowa. And during my time there, I struggled at the beginning with language and how to express myself through my artist books with language when I was having like this trouble in my head between two different languages. At the end, the solution was indeed to combine both, and it was very successful in many ways, thanks to a lot of research I did, and also to understand language beyond the meaning of words. First, I want to point out that even though I'm going to talk about artist books, and artist books have all these different elements, communication elements that are very important, I am going to be focusing on the writing aspect and on the time aspect. We all know that books move through time and space. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to show a few examples of artist books that most of them I found in at the special collections at the University of Iowa Main Library. And these are examples of books that I used to understand how I could approach a multilingual writing in my artist books. This is the first one. It's called Libro de las Preguntas, or A Book of Questions, by Aurora Armendi. It was printed in New York in 2014. And what's interesting about this book is that all the text is written in 3 languages and repeated, but in different parts of the page to catch the attention with the combinations of languages in each page. And also, there are these 3 different pages throughout the book that take one of those sentences of the main writing and put them in this big format in the design. These are all three different questions, and she decided to take each each language represents the question. And so what I thought with this book is, using language to catch the attention around different issues, different problems, and different things you want to say, which is also something that is very Latin American, I must say. We use language a lot, and not just Spanish or Portuguese, but we also use English to communicate our issues and to make political statements to the rest of the world. And this is a very good example. Then we have writing that is more organic, that uses shifts language organically. One example are the poems by Jose Montoya, but this is one book printed by Ninja Press of one writing from Montoya that is called El Sol y los de Abajo. And as we can see here, he does not differentiate language by typographic choices, color, or anything, but as you read, you encounter these changes, these shifts that are decisions made because of sound or meaning. I do really like this kind of multilingual writing because it kind of surprises the reader, and also asks from the reader a knowledge of the two languages in this case. But also if you don't have it, there is also things happening there, which I'll talk about more later. This is a book printed by Leslie Smith and Patricia Portela. Leslie was a student at the UICB, at the University of Iowa Center for the Book. And I just happened to find this book working on something else. And I thought it was beautiful. And also there was not just a use of two languages, but also the use of images to complement and to arrange the text on the page. As we can see here, the main text, which was written originally in Portuguese, is in black, and then the English translation is in gray, which works more like a shadow of the original. And this is something we can think about when we talk about multilingual books and translation, how the translation can take over the main text if not used in the best way possible. I do appreciate how much importance she is giving to the main and original text, but also having the option of having the translation, it's always good too. Then we have this book by José Reséndiz, Pasaje Silencioso. This is a beautiful, beautiful book about very Latin American issues. And I really wanted to show this, not just because this book is read in two ways. One side is in Spanish and the other one is in English, but also he uses wood type to create an imagery that kind of illustrates what is happening in the text, and the text moves with these images. And so it's a use of type that relates more to a visual significance more than a meaning on language, which I think is amazing. And it's a very delicate use of wood type, which usually tends to be more strong. Then we have multilingual books that are not with languages, and this is something I really, really wanted to say about my research. Part of my research was to think performance notation in terms of language. I do think that music notation, or in this case, dance notation, are languages themselves, right? We are not writing in Spanish or English or Portuguese or whatever. We are writing in music, in sounds, or in movements. And there has been a lot of experimentation around that. And I'm not gonna get very too much into graphic notation, except for this example. This is a graphically notated dance score by Lucinda Childs. It was made in 1977, and it's called Melody Excerpt. And this is a dance piece that is just the dancers just walk through the space, giving these like very rhythmic steps, guided by these figures. This is just one page of that score. You can find it very easily on the internet. Someone did like a very good analysis of this score, and I really like the use of the materials, right? Like these markers on a gridded page, the use of, you can see the tape here, taped pages. For those of us who are book artists, I think this is fascinating to see how people in other disciplines use these resources. And even though this score doesn't have much writing, the few written things are, of course, handwritten. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind when writing artist books. Even though here in this conference we're talking about typography, handwriting is another very, very huge part of artist books. And I'm going to show that more in one example of my own work, where handwriting versus typography can create and make us understand different parts and different dimensions of an artist's book. This is another score. This is for voice, and it was made by Christian Marclay, who works a lot with performance and music and book-related objects. In this case, this is a scroll, but he also works with cases of vinyls and CDs and posters of music, etc. And he has the performers interpret these images. In this case, he took a lot of parts of different mangas and just put them together. And so the performer has to just read these typographic elements and interpret them as voice. So you're not just reading the letters, right? You're just not saying boom, but there is something happening here with the text that that tells you there is an attitude, there is a way of reading it. There is a volume, there is a frequency, probably, there is a personality, there is a feeling which you have to transmit. And you can look it up. Those he has like recordings of like 7 different voice performers performing this, and it's really, really amazing because you can see the differences between each. Because this is a score that doesn't give you much detail on how to perform something, so there is a lot of interpretation that has to come from the performer. So those were the examples I based my work on, and now I'm going to show you some of my 3 or 4 of my own books. This is the first score I did during my MFA and the second visual score that I did ever. This is a book, it's bilingual first, it's in English and Spanish, and it's meant to be performed by both at the same time. I haven't been able to do that because every time I perform it, it's just me. Last time I did some crossing between the 2 languages to show that, but the idea is to have 2 people at duet reading this at the same time. And as you can see here, each page is divided in 2 blocks, and each block has 1 part in Spanish, 1 in English, and an extra score for things that are made with the hands. This book comes with instructions, and everything I'm saying right now, it's told in these instructions that are also in Spanish and English, and you will see later. And this is a score that if read by one person, one individual, the poem is very easy to understand, right? It's like more of a traditional poetry reading with a few fluctuations in the voice. This is not song, but there is like an opening of the mouth, then there is some melody, but it's not specified, right? Like huellas de faunas mínimas, encantos, Ceballos, things like that. But it's very improvisatory, and then, but when you interpret it, you perform it with in duet with someone else, the text starts to, of course, to diffuse itself, because what you are hearing is just a lot of words interacting with each other in different languages. And so the idea with this book was to experiment with the sound of text, the sound of words, the sound of English and Spanish coming together, and not just the meaning of the poem. So there is one dimension of the reading that, of course, can be let me understand the text, but there is also another dimension of what is happening when this text written that was written in both languages at the same time, it's interpreted in the same way, right? The way it sounded in my head is the way it will sound sort of when it's performed by two people. This is the instructions, a little pamphlet that comes at the beginning of the book in a little pocket. And this is a French fold, and as you can see, one side is in Spanish and the other side you can see is in English, and so you can just flip it around and fold it the other way around if you read the other language. Most of us know how to fold a French fold, and if we don't, it's pretty straightforward. I include the key here to say what is happening with your hands and what is happening with your voice, what these symbols mean. This book is handset type, but all the imagery is photopolymer plates that I scratched myself, the negatives. So the line is very drawing-like, and this is a beginning of an exploration that I made that is about the combination of type, specifically letterpress printed type, and the hand, drawing, handwriting, etc. Then this is one of the books I did this year for my thesis. It's called Un Libro, and it's a comparison and an ode to the body of the book and my body, and how they both age. We both take care of each other, etc. And the book was thought to be a score for the reader and a dancer. And so here you can see sort of how the book works. This is like the example I showed you of the poems. The bilingual writing happens organically. I'm not telling you this is English and this is Spanish. And then the embroidery and the photographs tell the dancer and the reader how to read and how to move. The dancer kind of becomes the book sometimes it's my own body, sometimes it's the antithesis of my own body. It depends. And in the instructions I mentioned, like what these symbols, these sound symbols mean, these thread symbols mean. This is another example. And so what the thread is doing is kind of an illustration of what is happening with the text. Right here, I'm talking about a girl and headbands, and then this like fetus-like shape kind of reminds us of a child, or it does to myself, and it did to my dancer when I did perform it. Here I'm talking about the square of the book, and so there is something very linear about it. And the same thing is happening with the illustrations, which are more notations than illustrations. And here is just a frame of a screenshot of the performance that my sister helped me doing. And finally, Fragmentos de Lluvia is the other book I worked for my thesis. It's also a music score. It's a graphic score, and it's meant to be performed by a choir or a vocal ensemble and paper instruments and a soloist. You can see here, these are the paper instruments that the performers play, and this is the score. Each box comes with 3 copies of the score. It is letterpress printed with photopolymer plates, because I was using a lot of Spanish for this text and we don't have enough accents at the UICB, so I had to design it digitally. And then make the plates. And here is what I was talking about, the handwriting. So the text, the main text for the soloist is in blue, dark blue, and it's, let's say, type, right? And then all the instructions for the performers and performance instructions are in green and are handwritten. So these are also photopolymer plates that come from scannings of my handwriting. And then we have a lot of graphic score things happening with handmade paper, different techniques with handmade paper and some pochoir. So as you can see here, I played with the layout and the typography to also tell the reader, the soloist, how to read this text, but without being very specific, because I do want some freedom for the performance of this book. And then above them, we have some lines that represent specific movements that are made with the voice, which is a resource that was used mainly in, I don't know, Gregorian music and older music notation. Here we have another one. So as you can see, the text is it's read with a lot of pauses. And then the choir is moving and doing certain things with the voice. This, for example, means like a breath. So how open the breath is, while the soloist is reading this, also with a certain level of performatic attitude. The score has one part of traditionally written music. It's a song. Again, this was handwritten, hand-drawn, let's say, then scanned and then printed in a Vandercook. And then these are more examples. So how the text moves in the page, the different typographic choices that I made to allow the performance to be as organic and as visual as possible, even though it was the voice. We have some pages that you can remove from the score and read in a certain way, which also have the lines I was talking about. I decided this italicized text to be for the choir or the voice ensemble, and this to be for the soloist. And then we have one spread that is a little book inside a book. And so the act of passing the page also involves a game of pauses in the reading and the performance. And the choir is just reading this text in a circle repeatedly until I finish reading the book, the little book. This is sort of what the elements were. These are all paper instruments that sound like rain. The book is about rain. It's a poem about rain, and it's different stages. And this is just a screenshot of the performance I did with some beautiful people and friends in May in Iowa City. Thank you very much. Please ask me anything. If I missed some of the typographic areas of my work, please ask me, and thank you. Híjole.